It's your Locked On Flyers podcast here, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is happy to bring you a World Junior Tournament preview featuring
Yes.
special guest Chris Peters.
Bring it on.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here with prospect expert Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. That's where you'll keep up to date with our episodes and Flyers news, all that good stuff. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail if you have any questions for us. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you're listening. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so you can see us over there as well. Russ, it's the most wonderful time of the year, as they say. It's the World Junior Tournament. You excited?
Oh, yeah. I love it. I mean, I've covered probably 4 or 5. The last one, some young guy named Carter Hart won gold with Cale Makar, those guys. It was great. I just love it. I love watching it. I wish they would have started showing it much sooner in the U.S. I think it's only been like the last 10 years. And then originally it was just the U.S. games. And then it finally expanded after a while. And and I'm happy. But I used to always be jealous when it was playing in other places. And, World Junior knowledge in this country used to really stink. And now it's gotten really good. Like people really have embraced it.
Yeah, and I think, at least for me, I've been watching it for a long time, or as long as we've been able to. But
Yeah.
for Team USA, that group that won the gold medal with Jacob Trouba as the
Mm-hmm.
captain of that team, him singing "Oh Mama" was the
Mm-hmm.
thing, that sealed it for me. That this is, one of my most favorite things in hockey, and I started paying even closer attention to it from year to year. And it is always a thrill and it's a great chance to get to know some draft eligible prospects as well as check in on how your team's prospects are doing against elite competition that are their peers. So it's usually a really good time, always around the holidays, except for last year when it was in August and that was a mess. But
Horrible, but it was something. As at least I watched every game. I mean, couldn't have been that
yeah.
bad. But yeah, what I always say is the competition level is amazing. It gets very cutthroat at the end, so you can't really make mistakes. But just the drive that these players have to win for their country is unbelievable.
Yeah. Always some good stuff going on. The tournament starts Monday, December 26th. The first Team USA game is against Latvia at 4 p.m. Eastern. The first Team Canada matchup is 6:30 p.m. against Czechia. So lots and lots of action going on that day overall. If you want to catch those games,
The
maybe you're
big
still
Boxing
on
Day lineup.
vacation. Yep. Yep. Gotta love it. And, we thought who better to get on the show with us to talk about World Juniors is prospect expert extraordinaire Chris Peters from flowhockey.tv. And we are going to bring that to you right now. We are thrilled to welcome back to Locked On Flyers, Chris Peters of Flow Hockey to help us preview the World Junior Tournament. Welcome, Chris.
Rachel, thanks for having me. It's good to be with you and Russ. It's my favorite time of year, so it's always fun to be talking World Juniors.
Yeah, this is where I start really digging into prospects the most and get ramped up for the next draft. So lots of stuff to pay attention to this time of year in hockey. I think for Flyers fans, the biggest thing that we're going to be following is Cutter Gauthier because he's pretty much it for us in this World Junior
That's not
tournament.
true. Brian Zanetti,
Well,
don't.
I know Brian Zanetti, but
But I get it.
apples and oranges here. But I think that, again, Flyers fans are pretty focused on how he does in this tournament to kind of get a gut check on his development so far. And so, I know he's been playing on the wing in the Team USA games, but he's been playing center for Boston College. So how do you see his role on the team, and, why is he on the wing versus center?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest reason that he's on the wing is because there's proven success there with Logan Cooley and Jimmy Snuggerud, because that's where he played down the stretch last season. I think if in a pinch, if they need another center, if they need more strength down the middle, and frankly, the U.S. isn't terribly deep at the center position, then they may move him, to temporarily. But I think that Team USA's top line of Gauthier, Logan Cooley, and Jimmy Snuggerud is basically their offensive focal point. And so, with Cutter playing on the wing, it allows him to open up his scoring potential. He's on the first power play unit too. And so, he's a really tremendous goal scorer, in addition to being a good big power center like he has been at Boston College. So I think more it's just, don't fix chemistry that, don't try to manufacture chemistry when it's not there. Just go with what's worked before. And
Right.
Gauthier, Cooley, and Snuggerud were dominant at the World Under-18 Championship. So this is a step up from that, but also, they've been the top line. So he's going to play a ton of minutes. He's going to play in a lot of different situations. And maybe he'll have to move to center at some point. But I think more than anything, this is just because he was so good on the wing with Cooley and Snuggerud, and not a referendum on his long-term projection. I mean, I think he's a long-term center. That's why the Flyers drafted him as high as they did. And maybe next year he'll play center at this event.
So we'll jump around a bit, so this way it mixes up the Team USA stuff. I don't want it to be like because there's other stuff to talk about too. So as an example, Shane Wright. If Shane Wright has a good tournament, do you think this changes the way Dave Haxtell is using him in the first part of the season before they sent him here?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think this will have any impact on what happens at the NHL level, just because we've seen guys come back from NHL teams and have dominant, like Barrett Hayton was an incredibly dominant player at this tournament, and he's still trying to figure it out at the NHL level.
True.
And I'll tell you what, though, the thing that this will do, I think it's much more about what this tournament means for Shane Wright than what it does for the Kraken, because Shane's going to get a chance to be the guy on this team. He's going to be the number one center for Canada. He is going to be, their captain. He is everything that they need him to be. And, I think it's just this is an opportunity for Shane Wright to reclaim his status as one of the top prospects in the game today.
That's well said. Yeah.
I think that if he has a strong tournament, it's great for his confidence. It's great for, it is good for the Kraken in that way, where he's going to be more confident.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at what Seattle has done this season, and that Shane Wright wasn't playing wasn't necessarily all about Shane Wright. It was also about the fact that Seattle was so good at the start of the season, and that they were, at times it just you couldn't get him into the lineup because what they had was working so well. So it'll be interesting to see what the next steps are after the tournament. But I think in terms of what it actually means for Shane Wright in the long term, I think this is just basically an opportunity for him to gain some confidence and to play a prominent role on the team in a year where, he's had to sit in the press box quite a bit. So, but we saw it at the AHL where he had 4 goals in his brief AHL stint. And I think we're going to see it here where he's a pretty significant player at this tournament.
Well, Bedard did everything but put the puck in the net for him on his first one.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the other thing, is that he's being put in a position to succeed alongside Connor Bedard. So, who's going to be the more impactful of the two players? It'll be really fun to watch.
All right, we'll have more with Chris coming up next.
And now an important message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes too many as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out. You think of calling for a ride? Nah. You live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you're going to get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up. You lose your license. You lose your job. You total your car. You kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Before we get back to talking to Chris Peters, just want to remind you to check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, I think Canada is a little scary. I mean, they're always a little scary in terms of, they go into this tournament as favorites most of the time. And there's a lot of pressure on them and those guys in particular. Do you think this squad is a squad that wins it?
I mean, they're certainly the best team on paper. I think that you look at the size of their blue line, the talent that they have up front, the fact that they have, four lines that can dominate, not just score but dominate, is no small thing. You look at the way that they've structured their lineup as well, with basically having a dynamic defenseman with a more defensive-minded defenseman, like you've got Olin Zellweger, and then you've got Brandt Clark, and you've got Kevin Korchinski spread out among three different groups. Whereas like USA is almost all puck moving defensemen that are small. They only have one defenseman that's below 6'2". Like it's kind of amazing. And sizes and everything, but it matters. It definitely matters. And so I think that that's key. The thing that may hold Canada back in some small way, and I think how often do we talk about a quarterback being a game manager? That's basically Canada's goalie every single year. Be a game manager. Don't make the big mistake that
All right, so stay there, pause it.
Yeah.
Because one of my questions for you is with Benjamin Gaudreau, like, is he the weak point? Because I got to tell you, I know, they're talking about his, looking through traffic is good. His positioning is good, but he is clunky post to post. Like, he is not smooth.
Yeah, I mean,
at least in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's still pretty raw. I think he still needs a lot more technique, and I think he's a goalie that goes by feel. And you have to remember too, the amount of time that was missed with the the OHL shutdown and different things like that. But and you know what? I don't think it's a guarantee that he's the number one. I think Thomas Milic has an opportunity to potentially be there, and he's the undrafted of the two goalies, but. You look at those two guys, they had success at the under 18 as a tandem, which I think is a big reason why they're, elevated to this role at the World Juniors as well. But it is a weak point for their team. I think there's no question about it. I like Milic just fine, but he's a tandem goalie in the WHL. Gaudreau has not had a save percentage above 900 in the last 2 years. You never know, because sometimes a guy can find his game at the right time and get hot, and then they
he can turn into Justin Pogge.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, I think really all that Canada's goalies have to do is manage the game. Don't give up the ugly goal. Don't give up the goal that breaks your back. Don't give up the easy ones. Make the saves you're supposed to make, and we don't expect you to do more than that. And that, if that's the expectation. Usually the guys in front of the goalies that they don't trust as much play a little bit harder. And sometimes that helps psychologically. But we'll have to see, because I think that these two guys are, they're fine. They don't get you excited. There's honestly, Russ, there's not a goalie in this tournament that I'm excited to watch.
No, I am with you.
It's
interesting.
It's just like, they're fine. It's fine. Nobody's got a guy that I think, we don't know that yet, because somebody will. It always happens. Somebody steps up in a big way and steals a game. So we'll have to see where that goes. But I think that's it's a weak point, but it doesn't concern me a ton for them.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that about the goalies, because I, usually don't pay attention to the goalies, for the most part, like you said, unless somebody pops out and has like incredible performances, right? But I wanted to pay attention to the Team USA goalies because they're relatively new faces to the more, it's weird to say senior, junior, but senior, junior players, right? Like the upper echelon players. And, I don't know much about them. Like, who do you think is going to be the guy for Team USA?
I think it's probably going to be Caden Mbarico.
Yeah, I think so too.
He started for them last year. Basically, Drew Comesso decided not to play in the Summer World Juniors, and that left, a pretty significant gap. And
Right.
Caden Mbarico filled it, and he did well for the first 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the quarterfinal was not good. And that's I personally, as somebody that watches hockey, I really like Caden Mbarico. Like, I like what he can do. I think that he fights for everything that he gets.
His stick work's real good. I like.
Yeah, he's a good puck handler. Like, he's aggressive, and he knows what he is. He's an undersized goalie that has to go based on feel. If you're 5'11", you're an average height. You're above average height for a human, but you are way below for a goalie.
I'm glad you said above average, because in the Cohen family, you'd be a giant.
Yeah,
I had one relative that was 6 foot, and then me at like 5'9" was like number 3.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, same deal in my family. But I think that for him, it's just about consistency. And unfortunately, at his size, he doesn't play that predictable technical style that a lot of goalies employ right now. He's more of that Jonathan Quick, Tim Thomas, like, throw the kitchen sink at it and see what happens. And that's great if you can do it at a high enough level, but you have to sustain that for a whole week. So the interesting thing is that if Caden Mbarico falters, and if he's not going to be the guy, they have Trey Augustine, who's a 17-year-old goalie. He's draft eligible. He's a little bit bigger, not much, at 6 foot, about 6'1" maybe. And he's had a tremendous season at the national team development program. He's had over a .930 save percentage this year, which is really difficult to do there. But that's, he's also hasn't had the same number of game reps as, some of the other goalies. So that's the other thing that you kind of are like, will he have the feel? This is a big stage to throw him on. Will he be able to thrive in that? So, goaltending for the U.S. is a big question as well. They've got a good group there to work with them. Jared Wayman, who is with the Tampa Bay Lightning, as I think he's like a goalie scout or goalie analyst for them, was the goalie coach at Quinnipiac, and he was also Spencer Knight's personal goalie coach for many, many years, and just knows the position and understands this event. He's worked with USA Hockey in the past. So I think they're going to lean on him to, help with that decision process, and they'll go with what's right at the right time.
All right. This one's a haymaker, so I'm letting you know this is going to be the hardest question anybody asks you about this tournament. And I'll answer it first just to take the heat off a little too. But is Connor Bedard more talented at this age than Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, or Alex Ovechkin? I covered a few of them. I've watched them all at World Junior level, and I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
But here's what I will say, Russ. Like, I've seen him at the under 18s. I've seen him at the World Juniors. I've seen, in the international settings, Connor Bedard is on, and he is great, and can be dominant. I think in this particular tournament, I have very little doubt that he's going to score a ton of goals. I think he's going to be the star of the tournament. We're all going to be talking about him for many years to come. The thing that separates those other guys from Bedard is there is zero, like, he's worked so hard to add more of it, but like, the physical stature that he has is huge difference. I mean, Sidney Crosby is not a giant, but he is thick. Mm-hmm. And you've got Evgeny Malkin is,
but he wasn't as thick as a World Junior participant. And that's
true.
What I'm getting at. And Ovechkin did get a hurt shoulder. He did go out of a game with a boo-boo.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I still think like they were just absolutely, just upper tier. But I think, to your point, Russ, like, I think Connor Bedard is in the conversation. Like,
yeah, he's in the conversation.
Let's see where he's at relative, like, to Connor McDavid's 16-year-old or 17-year-old season at the World Juniors, and being just a tremendously dominant player. Like, I think that what we've seen from Connor Bedard this season is nothing short of remarkable, spectacular, largely unprecedented. I'm still having a hard time getting my, like, he's not a burner skater. He's not a, he's just a tremendous shooter. He's incredibly intelligent, brilliant hands, does all these things really, really well. But I still think that the physical component of his game, which he's worked hard to improve and has improved in that regard, is like the thing that may end up being the separation between him and the guys that we view as, the upper echelon players.
That's fair.
All right, we're going to wrap up with Chris Peters coming up next. And we had a question about his Festivus grievances that resulted in a very interesting answer, which you are going to want to hear coming up next. So we've talked a lot about Team USA and Canada. There's usually in this tournament a plucky underdog country that people get behind. Who's that going to be in this tournament?
The team that I've been going with that I feel reasonably, strongly about in terms of their ability to compete and contend in this tournament is Czechia. They have some real talent on their blue line. They have a goalie that, stole a game for them against US last year in the quarterfinals in Suhanik. They have, David Juracek, who's probably going to play upwards of 28 minutes a game. And I think,
we're big Juracek fans on this show.
Yeah, I think he's phenomenal. And I think he'll be a major impact player. Then you've got other guys on their roster. Yuri Kulich has been doing an incredible job with the Buffalo Sabres affiliate in the AHL Rochester. He's scoring and he's a goal scorer. He can take over games. Got Edward Shala, who's a draft prospect, who I think is going to be a big piece of this team.
He's polarizing though. There are people that love him, people that hate him.
I mean, I think part of the people that you look at him in the Czech league, and it's really hard to even get a read on him because he just doesn't play that much. And then you get him here, you get him in these settings. You get him at the under-18 Worlds last year, where he was just an absolute stud with Kulich. I think that those two guys are gonna have a chance to make the team better. So the different, you look at the teams that win the tournament, they're gonna have multiple lines, multiple deep pairings that are going to give you a chance. But we've seen teams in the past, if they have one or two guys, and their goaltending is good enough, not spectacular but good enough, they have a chance to go on a run in the tournament. So I think the Czechs are going to be dangerous. There's a strong likelihood they finish third in their group, but in the crossover games for the quarterfinals, if you finish third, you probably play US or Finland. Right. And I think Czechia has enough to beat either one of those teams. So, it's just, that's, they haven't medaled since I think 2005 and maybe even before that. But I think that this is a team that absolutely has a reasonable expectation to go in saying, hey, we should be coming out of this with a medal.
All right. So one of my fun players to watch. He was really good last tournament, and he's not on a country that is really gonna overwhelm anybody. Ian Scherzer from Austria, center, fun guy to watch. Like I what do you think of him?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Like the thing about the Austrian players is it's just like, will they ever have the puck enough to notice them?
Right.
Like that's the thing about, like, they have multiple good players. They got Vincenz Rohr. They've got David Reinbacher, who's he's having a tremendous year in the Swiss league. Like, they have some guys. Scherzer's one of those guys where it's like, yeah, maybe, they need guys to step up. I don't think there's a bigger hole in any lineup than the one that Marco Kasper leaves by not being in this tournament. And I don't really blame him or the Red Wings for not going here. I mean, do you want to get your head kicked in for 7 days or, 8 days or however many days you get, the only reason to go is to maybe stave off relegation, because I just don't see them doing anything more than maybe playing in the relegation round. Maybe they sneak into a quarterfinal spot. It's tough to say. But it's just it's going to be hard for anybody on that team to stand up. That is definitely one of the multiple players on Austria to at least keep an eye on, see how they handle the adversity, and if they can, be strong enough. And then, it's
a reason to watch Austria, because these guys, all three of them that you mentioned, are talented.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Reinbacher, he's got a
Yeah,
real chance to be a top 15 pick even in this draft.
yeah.
He could be the first defenseman drafted for all we know in this draft, the way he's played this year.
Well, hold on that thought because I have a question about that coming
All
up
right,
later.
all right. Well, I will hold that thought and I'll wait for
Well,
that question.
that's a good transition because I think for Flyers fans, especially, with not a lot of presence in the tournament and where we are in the standings, we're looking at the draft eligible prospects, right? And so, who are like a couple of guys who are probably in like the 4 to 10 range, let's say, currently, that we should
Yeah.
be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the 4 to 10 range, hey, let's not discount the opportunity to get number 1 or number 2 here.
Look, we don't have that kind of luck
Yeah,
usually.
exactly. But obviously Bedard and Fantilli are the top 2 guys. But right after that,
Right.
Leo Carlson is probably the guy that I think a lot
Yeah.
of Flyers fans will want to watch. And if you have him and Cutter Gauthier down on your top line,
Ooh,
like. But and it's same situation. Carlson can play center. He's going to play
Yeah.
wing in this tournament. It looks like. But like if you have big, skilled players, that'll help. The one thing about Leo is he's not as good a skater. So that's something that will, potentially hold him back from being a top of
His
the
stick
lineup guy.
handling's really good. He can
Oh
stick
yeah, he's
handle
a
through
skilled.
anything.
He's offensively
Yeah.
smart. He's strong.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
hard to defend. Like there are so many tools. So I don't really worry about the skating a ton. It's just not a great attribute of his. But he's probably trending towards that number 3, number 4 kind of pick in this draft. Outside of that, there are some interesting guys. Dalibor Dvorsky for Slovakia will be one to watch. He's
Fun
played in
to
the
watch if he
Allsvenskan.
scores a goal. He's a real showman.
Yeah, he is a showman, and he unfortunately, like lately, his scoring has really cooled off in the Allsvenskan.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see if he can regain that, and if Slovakia is going to have a chance. Guys like him have to be good. Edward Shala, who I mentioned, is kind of in that 10-20 range. Where he's a guy that I think at this tournament the expectation should be reasonably high that he's going to make a significant impact. Charlie Stramel for Team USA,
Yep.
he's actually played exceptionally well in the pre-tournament games, aside from a couple penalties that he's got to avoid taking at the tournament. He's, his size, he's got 2 goals.
He's been playing up.
I'm sorry. Team USA taking dumb penalties? I am
Yeah.
shocked.
Well, they have a couple of options to do that. on their team
Charlie's
this year.
been playing up in age group for a while now too, like the last 3
Yeah.
years, and
Yeah.
he's done really well everywhere he's played.
Yeah, and I think that he's starting to discover that confidence again, rediscover
Yeah.
the confidence that he had a few years ago, because
Yeah.
he, after he got injured last year and missed half a season to surgery, it's taken him a while to get it back. I think he's as close as he's ever been to getting it back.
All right, my last question for you, Axel Sandin Palika, who we both watched and spoke to at the Five Nations. If he has a great tournament, could this push him to be one of the top 2 defensemen in this draft?
It's hard to say because I think that this year's draft is so weird, and when it comes to defensemen, there are so many differing viewpoints on this group. So he's a 5'11" defenseman, right shot defenseman with great offensive skill. I like his skating ability. He actually played on the power play for Sweden on their top power play unit at this tournament, or at the pre-tournament.
Yeah, and he looked good.
USA.
Like he looked good. Zone entries were good.
Looked really good. Like, and he's played in the SHL for a lot of this season. So it's really, he's steadily trending up, and I really like his game. Coming into the event, it's so rare that a player for Sweden who didn't play at the under 18s as an underager plays at the World Juniors the following year. So it's a pretty significant leap, and it also speaks to how depleted Sweden's blue line is without Simon Edmondson, Matthias Havelid, Elias Salomonsson. So they have guys that could have potentially been in that round. But if Sandy Palika has a big tournament, it does change the dynamic, I think, of how he's viewed. Because as of right now, is he skilled? He's got skill, but is he skilled enough? Is he fast enough? Can he do those things at his size? Defensively, he needs work, but still, he's got a lot of that offensive capability. So I am very excited to see what he can do in this tournament, because I like the player quite a bit. I think at this point, the order of how the defensemen are going to go in this draft, Russ, remains completely a crapshoot to me.
No,
And
I think that's the right answer.
Yeah, I
do.
have no idea exactly how it's going to go. There's like a collection of maybe 10 to 15 defensemen where you're like, maybe, I don't know.
I just wanted to get the conversation going. You know how that is.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I think Sandin Pellikka being in this tournament, I'm super excited to see how he does.
All right. Yesterday on our show, we had our Festivus airing of the grievances. And so I'm just curious if you have any World Juniors grievances. Is there a player missing, a team missing, anything like that that you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any. I don't know if I have any grievances aside from the fact that, you know, I would really like for Russia to get out of Ukraine. You know, like I mean, like, you know, like basically it's so, the one thing I do want to say is like Russia is not in the tournament for all of the right reasons. They should not be part of the international sporting community for as long as this is going on in Ukraine. And I think that other nations will agree. Like, I don't think Finland or Sweden will ever agree to play in a tournament with Russia so long as this is going on. And so that's the challenge for the IIHF is at what point do they allow Russia to come back in?
Right.
And to be honest with you, it could be sooner than we think, just because money talks. And that's the thing that I'm concerned about. But I think that the other thing I will say is from a just strictly hockey perspective, Russia not being in the World Juniors diminishes the tournament. It does.
I said it on another show yesterday.
It just does. I can't. When you take away an elite team that always has a chance to win the whole thing, that's one threat out of the mix. And this year we're going to feel that pretty significantly, because that means that, you know, somebody like last year, Latvia squeaks into the quarterfinals, and, you know, in most years they wouldn't, you know, so, and I'm glad for them, amazing accomplishment. But we also know that had Russia been in that tournament, Latvia wouldn't have even been there. They wouldn't have even been there because they hadn't earned promotion at that point. So, you know, it's just, so that is my grievance is nothing really hockey related. Instead, it's more like, come on, can we get rid of this? And it's funny we mentioned this now because obviously we've had, you know, the diplomatic efforts of the Ukrainian president here in the US. And so it's just like, it's top of mind for that way, but also, you know, with the World Juniors, Russia's absence is going to be felt. And it was last year. I thought the Summer World Juniors was maybe the worst World Juniors I've ever watched.
Yeah,
and,
it was.
It was not pretty.
Yeah, except for the final. The final was great.
Right.
Outside of that, like they're so lucky that final happened, because I love this tournament so much, and that event was an affront to the tournament. So hopefully we have a much better event this time around.
Exactly. All right, Chris, thank you so much. Where can people find you out there?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be heading out to Halifax and Moncton very soon. I'll be covering the entire tournament for Flow Hockey, and that's flowhockey.tv. Lots of written content. We'll have some video content as well. My podcast is Talking Hockey Sense, and then you can also catch me on Twitter at Chris M. Peters. I will be basically with Team USA the entire time. That's the path I'm taking in this tournament. It's going to be much more USA focused as opposed to strictly prospects focused. There will be that as well. So covering the entire tournament with a special focus on the US, and I hope everybody enjoys it, because it's a lot of fun for me to do it.
We'll be watching. Right. Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks once again to Chris Peters for joining us for our special World Junior preview. Just so much respect for all of the work he does and the knowledge he has. You could throw any player at him from the tournament and he'll have something to say about it.
He will. He's very opinionated. No, I'm kidding. He's really great. He is. His knowledge base is terrific.
Yeah. So just a reminder, the tournament is on TSN in Canada, NHL Network in the United States, and other places around the world, wherever you are listening or watching the show. And we will be back next week on Tuesday. We're going to get caught up on the Flyers action. We're going to talk about the Phantoms and how Cutter Gauthier is doing in World Juniors so far.
And Brian Zanetti.
And Brian Zanetti, yes. Always forget Brian. Sorry, Brian. And, you know, to get that going, the tournament has some like pre-tournament games that they had, and Team USA played Sweden, and Cutter Gauthier scored in that. So that is our Flyers fun thing for today.
Yeah, Purdy goal it was.
Very pretty goal. All right, that'll do it. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and their take of the day. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. And have a great holiday weekend and happy World Juniors, everyone.
Have fun, everybody.